lovely people. You are tuned in to Akashvani Kashyang podcast at 103.5 megahertz. Today's episode will be about education, a lifelong lesson. So to all my listeners who wants to grow every day, who seeks their power from knowledge, then this is the time and episode you might not want to skip. Beginning with a powerful thought, our grades show how qualified we are academically, but the knowledge we acquire defines our reality. Is that really true? To explore this, we have with us a deeply enthusiastic educator, a school leader who has worked closely with children, parents, and communities in hills. Our guest today is not just an educator by profession, but a quiet force shaping education in Darjeeling Hills and beyond. Currently serving as the principal of Roya School, Darjeeling, he represents a new generation of academic leadership, one that blends scholarship with service, vision with humanity. An academician, educator, and committed social worker, he holds the distinction of being the youngest principal in Darjeeling Hills, redefining what leadership in education looks like at a very young age. His influence extends far beyond the classroom. He is the youngest governing body member of the Association of Schools for the Indian School Certificate, an organization representing all ICSE schools across West Bengal, Northeast, and Sikkim, where he actively contributes to policy dialogue and academic decision. In addition, he serves as an auxiliary board member for Sikkim, Darjeeling, India, and Bhutan for the Bahá'í community, working closely in areas of education, youth development, and community building. Grounded in hills, yet engaged at national and regional levels, his journey reflects a rare combination of intellectual depth, social commitment, and moral leadership. It is a privilege to have such a personality in our show who believes education is not preparation for life, but life itself. Welcome to the show, Mr. Akash.
Thank you so much for such a generous welcome. I receive it with humility and gratitude. Thank you so much for that welcome. But to see my journey as an educationist, whatever I've done so far or whatever I've achieved so far or been through a lot, I would say it's a collective effort. Of all the teachers that have taught me and guided me, of all my colleagues who have worked side by side with me, my teachers who had always worked with me in working with my vision, and then a student who constantly teaches me, and the community that places their trust in me with their child's education. I consider myself first and foremost as a learner and not as an educator or teacher, something like that. I consider myself as a learner, who is still growing, reflecting on the life, reflecting on whatever I have done, and trying to serve through education in whatever very small way possible. It is my privilege actually to be the part of the conversation, and it is my privilege to be the part of the first speaker in the first ever podcast of Akashvani Kashyang. Yeah, I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I'd like to learn and share and listen today. Thank you so much for inviting me to the show. Thank you.
Yes, it means a lot from our side as well. And you accepted our invitation and you are here today for this deep and educational conversation.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And tell me, how long have you been with Akashvani?
So the story with Akashvani goes a very long time ago. I don't remember exactly when I participated in the programs of Akashvani Kashyang, but it's a very long journey that I have with Akashvani.
Okay, tell us from the beginning, like how it started. Were you excited, nervous?
Yes, I think I was very nervous when I did my first show in Akashvani. I think it was, maybe I was in class 5, I remember.
So how old were you?
Oh my God, 2007, class 5, maybe 7-8 years old. I don't remember. So yes. So from that time, I participated in the shows of Akashvani. I used to come with my teacher here. I remember the first show that I did in Akashvani, in fact, was for Children's Day program. So I came with my teacher and then I did a show. I don't remember exactly in what topic that I spoke about, but it was an interview. It was a very interesting kind of a conversation,
Okay.
It was a very meaningful conversation that we had in the show. I still remember. I have a very fond memories of those shows that I did in the Akashvani. And I feel that Akashvani role in education is very deeply rooted in our education system. It has a profound impact on the listeners as well. And I'd like to share you a story about how impactful is Akashvani. I went to a trek, a few years back, and when I went to a trek, because in that trek there was no internet and nothing was there. I saw a guard there, a forest guard there, who was holding a radio 7 p.m. at night, and then he was trying to adjust his antenna and all. I was surprised. I asked him what is he doing, and he said that his routine every day is to listen to the news at 7 p.m.
Yes.
And that was really touching for me. I was reflecting, in this era of modern era where technology and everything is there, Akashvani is still delivering what it was meant to do. And it has a very deep impact on the people itself. I still remember my grandparents who used to listen to the All India radio show, Akashvani show, actually Akashvani Kharsang. So
Yes.
it was a very fond memory. And now coming back to my story with Akashvani, it's a very interesting. When I did my shows, it was a very interesting, because interviews that we did in Akashvani really helped me to build my vocabulary. It helped me to gain confidence, to speak to somebody, how to do interviews. It was very, very helpful, to talk about that. And yes, of course, and then after that, there were multiple shows and various programs I was invited to. And yes, it really helped me a lot, especially whenever we are doing shows like this, we have to read a lot, write a lot, and then it really helped me to build my vocabulary as well. So one of the, reasons why my vocabulary, I'm not say great, but good, is because of Akashvani itself.
Also, the confidence we see you in today.
Exactly, yes.
It will not be wrong to say it's because of Akashvani.
Yes, very true, very true, very true. Because, I would like to thank my teachers as well, who thought that, to bring me in Akashvani, and I would like to thank Akashvani as well. Akashvani is really giving opportunities to young students. I hope still they are doing this.
Obviously, we
yes,
are.
Yes, it really helps to bring out a student capacity. I remember one time I went to an elocution competition. It was a Nepali elocution competition, and it was held on the occasion of Shahid Divas. It was organized in Gorkha Jan Pustakalay, where I wrote a poem on Major Durga Malla. Yes, and in that competition, fortunately, I won that competition, elocution competition, and then I was invited to Akashvani. I was in class 8 or 9 that time, I remember. So I was invited to Akashvani to recite that poem itself. It was a very interesting opportunity for me, rather say. I still see, young poets and musicians, they get a lot of opportunity in Akashvani, and it really, really great, what Akashvani is doing in this context. And yes, last time I came here, we discussed to a length about, I think, environmental problems.
Yes, of course.
And before that, I participated in the Akashvani Sikkim program, actually. So what is the context behind the program is that Sikkim recently had their first ever student Bidhan Sabha. So in that student Bidhan Sabha, I was in my college days, and then in that Bidhan Sabha, I was elected as the chief minister of Sikkim for one day. Right. So I was the leader of the house. Akashvani actually did an interview with me as how I felt about the, and then we passed 2 bills in that student Bidhan Sabha. It was a very great learning opportunity for me as well. And then Akashvani Sikkim also conducted an interview with me regarding the same. So as I mentioned, the journey with Akashvani has been a very long, profound and a memorable experience.
And education did bring you close to Akashvani.
True, yes. I have been to Akashvani because of education itself.
Yes. And we, Akashvani, we not only focus on entertainment, we provide infotainment, and our motto is spreading education to young minds, to people, to everyone. So you think we are doing a great job?
Yes, you are doing an excellent job. To take me for an example, I see many of my students who are in Darjeeling and who are in Khorsang itself. In my time, when I was a student, those who came to Akashvani, now they are in a very good position. They are doing so well in their life itself. So I think it's a great opportunity that Akashvani is providing to them as well. Also, just a suggestion, Akashvani should also provide more opportunities for such students, and many more students to explore on these ideas itself.
Yes, we are doing our best. And yes, listening to the story you said about Guy listening to a radio news early at 7, I believe that is a huge feedback for us. And listening to all those stories, people complimenting our programs, our anchors, it really gives us that motivation to move forward, to bring episodes like this. And yes, coming to our conversation, do grades really show how qualified we are, or do they measure one narrow form of intelligence?
So first of all, we have to understand grades as an indicator and not as an identity. What I mean to say by this is that grades should be understood in a very contextual matter. They tell us how well a student has performed in a fixed duration of time, in a fixed structure. Grades are just an indicator, and it does not indicate how much the student have learned at all. So these are just an indicator. So this modern education, system often forgets this distinction. Often we compare our students according to our grades, how how intelligent they are. If we go deep dive into the psychology of a student, there are various forms of intelligence. There is a spatial intelligence, there is a sound intelligence. There are so many intelligence are there, but we see people compare the child with the grades. They compare the intellect with the grades, but very interestingly, there is no such relation between the grades and the intelligence. Of course, there is an IQ test and other things are also there, but overall intelligence of a child cannot be compared with just the grades of a student.
It is affecting their mental stability.
Exactly, very true. The modern education system often forgets this distinction. As highlighted in the education philosophy, knowledge is not just mere accumulation of facts, but the capacity to understand reality and act upon it meaningfully. But in a very interesting way, in a very long run, it does not reflect person intelligence at all. If I ask you, do you remember what you have answered in class 8 or 9?
Obviously
not, right?
Vague.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
So, this is a very shallow way of looking at the student's intelligence through the perspective of grade as well. So, I believe the true education develops values in individuals.
We all are different beautifully, right? So, we should appreciate valuing each personality, I guess.
Yes, true. And that is the true meaning of education itself, to build values in an individual itself. Because at the end of the day, you'll not ask me, are you a topper or something like that. At the end of the day, what matters is how you speak to a person, how you behave to a person. That should be the main focus of education itself. How to build a better human being, not to build the machines.
Yes. Also, education is a lifelong lesson.
Exactly.
So it is a journey. So let's not pressurize ourselves, our kids. Instead, find a way to educate our children according to how they adapt situations, environment, right?
Yes.
Talking about grades, the National Education Policy 2020 openly challenges this mindset. Do you think National Education Policy finally shifts us away from marks-centric education?
It's an historical shift, true, but it is more of a philosophical thing till date. It has to be, implemented. But true, if we talk about the National Education Policy 2020, it's an historical shift. For the first time, a national policy that clearly states that education is not about rote learning, ranking or rigid examination, but about holistic development, cognitive, emotional, ethical, and social development of a child. NEP 2020 talks about reducing curriculum overload, moving from summative to formative assessment, accessing the competency, not memory-based learning. So this directly aligns with the ideas that the grade shows qualification, but knowledge shapes reality. If implemented sincerely, I think the national education policy will allow a child to be a good learner and not a scoring machine.
So the policy acknowledges what educators have been saying for decades.
Yes, true. Many educationists has been calling out for the education policies that was in India, not just in India, all over the world, that our education policy has to be changed, it has to be modernized. And then it has been modernized today by the virtue of the government, and then this new education policy, it talks about so many drastic things. The very interesting thing is getting away with the rote learning. But the thing is, it's all comes down to the implementation, how well the program is implemented. And yeah, of course, if implemented correctly, then yeah, we can achieve great things with this education policy.
And talking about education policies, do you know about the story of Kami Shiratake Station of Japan?
Okay, I have not heard about it.
Okay, it's very interesting. You must listen. There is this railway company, JK Hokkaido. Due to low passenger numbers, it was about to close its service, but it didn't.
Yeah, now you said about this story and now it comes to my mind. Yes.
Yes, so do you know why?
Yeah, because of a student.
Yes, yeah. Later they found out that there was a student who used to travel in their train daily just to go to school.
Yes.
And so they decided to cancel closure, continued to stop twice a day just to pick her up till she graduate. And in March 2016, after her graduation, station got closed with meaningful and life-changing lesson, which actually was a reality for that student. So we can figure it out how her personality developed, right? Or a person she turned into.
Yes, it's very true. But I would rather say the story from a very different lens,
Okay.
Because since I work as an educator of an
Okay.
institution, I see a very positive resilience of the government and the institution itself, the
Yes.
will of an institution. And just to run a train for that single child, it shows about the government will of education. The government which places full confidence and shows political will towards education, it goes very well beyond.
The point is, we can do our best to educate a child or educate anyone, right? Because there's no restriction on you have to read this book or you have to follow someone or do a certain task in a certain way. But there are many ways we can educate ourselves even. So we have to be open-minded.
Exactly. And whenever we are talking about education, I'd just like to add one more story to this. A similar kind of a story.
Okay.
Just like a entire train was running for the child. It's a very interesting story about a girl who is a football player actually from Kalimpong. Just for that one child, so that she can participate in the national event, that principal made an entire team just for that one girl. And then that child participated in the CISC zonal tournament, and then she got selected for the regionals, and then she went for the nationals football tournament as well. In that story and in this story, it is the will of a governing body, whosoever it is. If that governing body has the will so that a child can move forward, then everything is possible.
Also, one thing, our nation is not behind doing good things, great things.
Exactly. Yes. Even when I see the various stories that the government has been providing us, it's exceptional. The opportunities now the government has providing us, it's well beyond, and everyone is recognizing the things.
Personally, how do you think a good quality education helps in balancing vicissitudes of our life?
So yes, that's a very interesting question. What I feel is that education is the key to open all the doors. Seeing education in just a school perspective is a very narrow way of looking at the education itself. There are various ways to look at education itself. If you are learning to drive, that is also a form of education. If you are learning to cook, that is also a form of education. So first of all, we have to broaden our horizons regarding how do we see education as. And then what I feel is education is building of character itself, like virtues such as patience, building virtues such as competence, building virtues such as forbearance. So it's a very interesting correlation. Many of us, we don't tend to see it in this way. Whenever I am sitting and doing mathematical problem, I cannot solve the mathematical problem, then I get frustrated. What am I lacking?
Patience.
Exactly. So the virtue that I'm lacking is patience itself, or forbearance itself, to sit for a long period of time, dedication itself. So when we develop certain virtues and certain attitude, it becomes easier for us to study as well. So we have to see education in a broad perspective, and I feel the schools that is in Darjeeling Hill, wherever in the world itself, should have an open perspective towards the education as well. And I feel young educators, young administrators can truly look into this matter, and we can with the help of your shows like this show, we can empower the listeners so that they also think education above the schools and grades.
If we work together, definitely we can.
Exactly. And actually, I would like to thank you and thank the show, Akashvani Korshyang, inviting me to have the show, because it's very important for the people also to listen to this kind of perspective about education. Because this kind of show, actually, it's a discourse on education, and it helps people to, reflect what they have learned till now and what can be the future of education itself. So, maybe some people will listen to it, and then they will also think about, what this show was about and how they were sharing about education. It might help maybe few other students as well.
Yes, from our shows and conversation like this, if we could change even one heart or one mind, then obviously it is a huge thing for us.
It's a great success. Actually.
Yeah, it is a great success. And coming back to national education policy, which strongly promotes multidisciplinary education, how does that connect with your belief that knowledge defines reality?
So, to answer that, reality itself is multidisciplinary, and life, of course, is multidisciplinary. We cannot just keep life in compartmentalization. Life does not arrive in a subject-wise compartments like mathematics at 10 a.m., ethics at 11 a.m., science at noon. So, NAP push towards a flexible subject choice. You can choose any subject. If I was a student during the time of NAP, I would have chosen this subject. When I was in my college, I had a very strong liking towards geography, but I could not take geography. I had a very good liking towards biology as well. Now I wanted to take biology, I wanted to take philosophy, I wanted to take geography, but I could not because of the education pattern that was existing in that era. But now, because of the national education policy, it gives flexibility to a student to choose from any discipline possible.
That's why this generation is called a fast-moving generation, right?
Exactly. And to also add on to that context, now there's an integration. Now NAP talks about integration of arts, science and vocational skills as well. Now the schools are an institution which are equipping a student with all the life skills as well that are required in the later part of their life as well. So now this vocational training that is integrated in the school system is also a very interesting approach towards education as well.
From the generation we come from to the generation we have today, according to you, what is the main difference that sets us apart regarding the perspective of acquiring knowledge?
It's a very interesting it's a very interesting question that you have asked me. The most striking difference lies in the access and attitude towards knowledge. Earlier generation had very limited sources, books, teachers, and lived experiences. So knowledge was often approached with patience, depth, and relevance. Learning was slower, of course, right? But perhaps more reflective. Today's generation live in an age where there is an instant access to the knowledge, instant access to the informations. So information is abundant and immediate, which is a powerful advantage as well. If we talk about the AIs and if we talk about the easy accessibility of the internet, it's an advantage for any student. However, it's also a challenge. Challenge in what ways? Students lack the ability to discriminate between what is knowledge and what is wisdom. Whatever the internet is providing us is just data, and it's not actually knowledge that they are getting. So knowledge and information are two different things. So there's always an advantage and disadvantage to whatever things that is there. But I think that knowledge is not just mere a personal advancement, but a service to humanity. Education it should be seen as a lifelong process that must harmonize with the material progress as well as the spiritual growth of a human being as well. And I would like to share to all the listeners that broaden your horizons for education. You can get education from anything possible. You can get educated from the comic book that you're reading, from the driving lessons that you're taking. Broaden your horizons regarding the education itself.
It all depends on how you take it.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's bring this to home. What makes education in Darjeeling Hills unique and challenging? We have a history of having a quality education. Also was an educational hub.
Yeah, very true. It was once considered as an education capital of Northeast, or even people say of India as well. And then we have a very rich history of education in our place as well, dating back to the British era itself. Darjeeling district is one of the very educated districts of the West Bengal itself. So yeah, education, it has a very deep impact in the hearts of the people of Darjeeling itself. We have got so many famous personalities, who had studied here in Darjeeling, like starting from the kings of Bhutan, and then we had also had, I think, the king of Nepal as well, and so many actors and actresses like Danny Denjungpa even studied here. I was preparing for this session. I was surprised to see the chief minister of Nagaland also studied in Darjeeling. And then of course we have our honorable chief minister from Sikkim, Shri Prem Singh Gole, also studied in Darjeeling itself. So yeah, we have a rich history of education. Dr. Gambhir Singh Yonzon, who recently received the Padma Shri, and last year we had our very own soil of the sun from Koshing itself, Dr. Eklavya Sharma, who received Padma Shri. So, and then we also have our very own scientist or professor, late Dr. Jyoti Prakash Tamang, who was a famous microbiologist from our place. I'm very fortunate because I was one of his student during my master's days as well. I'm very fortunate that I could study under him and take his guidance. And then he was a very great personality as well. Darjeeling has a very luminous history of education itself. the hill actually teaches us humility. Yeah.
Yes. Now we are considering about Darjeeling Hills, students, people from our hills, but all these achievements, every great thing they do, it is also about nation, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, it is also about nation. They are not only making us proud, they are not crowning our Darjeeling Hill, but they are directly helping our nation grow. And they are also helping people know more about Darjeeling Hills and Darjeeling people, how we are and what we can do.
Yes, exactly. Because of these great students, we have been, able to recognize ourselves, and then India is also, as a country, nation, the more educated its citizen, the more forward a nation grows.
So about national education policy, what opportunities and challenges does it present here in our Darjeeling Hills?
So the national education policy has a very promising aspirations for the students of Darjeeling Hill. The national education policy talks about the mother tongue in early education and the inculcation of the regional languages as well. With this national education policy, we'll be able to implement the regional languages in the school system as well, where the child will be learning in Bhutia language, where the child will be learning in Lepcha language, where the child will be learning in their own Limbu language or a Manga language. So, a child can be learning in their own mother tongue. So it's a very great impact that a child will have. National education policy, it curates to the multilingual population that our Darjeeling Hill has. So yeah, national education policy, it's a very, as I mentioned, philosophically it's an historical shift.
And how this policy has affected your way of educating your children?
So yeah, actually reflecting on the national education policy, it talks about the holistic development. From the very beginning, I was more into the holistic development of a child. We say 3 H's: hand, head and heart. Not scientific, but more technical term would be cognitive, assertive and affirmative domain of a child. If we talk about these 3 things to our common listeners, those who are listening: heart, head and hands. So the functioning of these 3 things, when they come together, we call it an holistic development of a child.
Give me at least 3 rules on how we can keep ourselves educated in this dimensional world.
Yeah, so 3 things that we can constantly do to keep ourselves educated is, first thing is thirst for knowledge. Yes. One should always have thirst for knowledge and should be willing to learn from anybody. It may be a student, it may be somebody who's working in the field. So this thirst for knowledge is very essential for learning to take place itself. Second thing would be humility. Until and unless you don't have humility, you will not learn at all. Because once we gain education or we reach certain level, we tend to get this pride in ourselves. And whenever you start getting pride among yourself, the first thing is you do is stop learning. So, to constantly get education, first thing you have to develop is the attitude of humility. Yeah, so I think maybe 2 things I can share right now. One is a thirst for knowledge and second one is being humble all the time. Or where you can learn from anyone and anything.
Yes, but you mentioned a very sensitive topic we all normally ignore.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
But that is how we learn and grow. Now coming to an end, any final message for students, parents, teachers, in fact, everyone listening to us right now?
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, I've been mentioning this throughout our conversation. Education should not be looked from a mere academic perspective. Education is a very broad spectrum of a process. And then, education, it is not a race. It's a journey of becoming. Grades may certify learning, policies may guide system, but education ultimately shapes who we are. Marks may open door, of course, as I mentioned, but character determines how you walk through them. In the hills, in our cities, in classrooms and in the community, education must always aim to make us more human and not just a more successful and an marks machine. And to all the educationists or to all the schools that may be listening to our show, schools should think about the value of education even more deeply.
Yes, education might help you reach your goals, but a true value defines you.
Exactly.
It makes you a good human, great human, and a person who everyone looks up onto.
Yes,
and
true.
That is the main goal of a humankind.
Exactly.
I believe so. Also, Nelson Mandela once said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And it has changed, it will continue to change, but the only key factor is that being alert in acquiring quality education. Thank you for this deep and thoughtful conversation, Akash. And to all my listeners out there, If today's episode helped you even a little bit, then feel free to give us a feedback and stay tuned to Akashvani Kishyong podcast at 103.5 MHz. We will be back with more episodes like this. Till then, be happy, stay healthy, educate yourself, educate everyone around you, and create an educated society.